For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Dan Weber for instant analysis of USC's 30-27 loss to Notre Dame. Now, Dan, there's a lot to talk about in regards to this game, but first off, I just want to get your overall thoughts. I think there's two ways you can kind of view this game. One, and a more myopic view, USC played tough against a number 9 ranked team. They came out with fight in the second half. Or you can look at it as a whole, as the full season. USC still hasn't gotten a road win yet, and they played in a game where they could have won. What do you take away from this game?
I think you take away both things. I think it's, I was just thinking this is a game where you come away and say the glass is half full and the glass is half empty. Mm-hmm. And, if this were, there were a lot of people congratulating USC kids. I mean, half the Notre Dame team, I think, came up the marquee step and, were hugging him and telling him what a great game. I think you can get maybe carried away a little bit with that because I think if USC came in here having beaten BYU, who they should have beaten, and beaten Washington, now that we realize Washington's not very good. If they came in here and this game dropped them to 5-1, you can say, man, we should have won it, but and we go back and we're unbeaten in the Pac-12 and we're just going to go right through it. But having, and dropping to 3-3 changes everything. If they were 5-1, had lost this game, Notre Dame might be number 9, they might be number 10. Yeah. I mean, that's a big difference. And you can say, hey, we're the best 3-3 team in the country. You can probably argue that. So what? Do they have to now run the table in the Pac-12? Yeah, absolutely. Could they? Absolutely, based on this game. I mean, look at all the things they didn't get done in this game against the Notre Dame team that played well. Yeah. And that Notre Dame, fans were certainly, involved in this game, and I think everybody was pretty pleased with what Notre Dame did. I mean, they played like Notre Dame plays, and USC was right there at the end. And, having survived a really first half where they just left so many points on the board, and then they turned it around the second half. That's great, but you got to do that and win the game. I don't think you can feel too good if you do it and you don't win the game. I think that's a big deal. And 3-3 for a team that could be 5-1 and maybe could have walked out of here a winner, I don't think that makes you feel real good.
Yeah. And Clay Helton was asked point blank, do you think that you should have won this game? And he actually said no. And he pointed to the first half and how they lacked explosive plays on offense. And like you said, Dan, how many points they left on the board. When it comes to play calling, Graham Harrell said that they actually had more success when he went tempo and made them go faster. And he said he pointed to the mental toughness of this team and said that when they don't have to think about the last play, when they're not trying to overdo it, play too hard, they actually play better. But what do you take away from those kind of factors that he talked about?
Well, I was the one that asked him the question. I said, we can talk about all the things that we saw that didn't happen. Why didn't they happen? And Graham did say, well, I kind of changed the way I was calling plays. I called them faster in the second half, and they played faster. And I think we've all, been pretty convinced that this team, when they play tempo and they don't give the other team a chance they don't give themselves a chance to, think back about what just happened, but they also don't give the other team a chance to really get ready. Yeah. And they just go, they're much more aggressive, I think, when they're playing tempo and their talent comes out, and they just go down the field and make plays. They ran the ball with Marquise, they ran the ball with Vi and Stephen Carr, and then they threw the ball, and even though they're doubling Michael Pittman and trying to take him out of the game, they did the things you're supposed to do. Is they started really making Notre Dame pay for not being able to do that to Amon-Ra. And so, I think it shows you what could be, but they've got to do it they can't do 2 good plays on offense and a bad play, or 2 good plays on defense and a bad play. That cancels out the 2 good plays. And they got to be more consistent. And I think that goes back to, what happens at practice. How much pressure are you under in practice, and are you able to take plays off or not in practice? And then second thing that goes back to practice is the inability, what you saw today, for example. The first Notre Dame defender that contacted a USC ball carrier or receiver took him down almost all the time. USC, the first guy that contacted the ball carriers often did not take him down. And again, those are a couple of things that go right to practice. Yeah. I think, they don't look like they're willing to change much of that, but this is a team that's fairly close. I mean, this was tough. They hadn't tackled anybody in 2 weeks. they do drills. No, they'll admit it. They just do drills, and I don't know that there's a substitute for figuring out under controlled conditions how you have to. And Notre Dame took advantage of it a number of times with Book on the keepers, the quarterback on the keepers, getting to the edge, and getting USC guys, tacklers out in space. And I think USC tacklers almost become a little hesitant because they know they don't do it enough to feel really confident with it. And then they did the reverse for the touchdown where they got Christian Rector singled up with a speedy Notre Dame kid, and he's playing on a bad ankle, and that just almost wasn't fair. But I give Notre Dame credit; they really were able to attack USC's weaknesses, and they made it work.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to this defensive performance, how much do you weigh in injuries? I know USC secondary got banged up a lot. That's still TBD as far as their health going forward. But you have guys like Kalana McCalla, the true freshman, going in there at corner just because that's how damaged their secondary got. What do you take away from this defensive performance where some critical guys were missing at key points?
I mean, there were times where Notre Dame needed a third and long first down, and they would attack somebody, and they'd give them a big cushion, and they'd get a key first down. But still, if you don't get the roughing penalty on the quarterback from Palaie, yes, he might win the game. I don't think it was their defense that didn't quite get it done. They looked like they got tired at times. And then they, had a second win. I think the bigger problem, we saw Coach Chad on the sideline really call them out for lack of discipline and being selfish. And he went after every one of them. I mean, he was on the book a couple of scrambles for the touchdown that won the game for Notre Dame. He was really not pleased. And I just think some of that happens if you practice with a lot of intensity where you can't take any plays off. And, USC figures out how to do that. They haven't. And they might still have enough talent to win the Pac-12. They might still have enough talent to win out. We'll see. I mean, they get Oregon at home, but they got to win games on the road, and we haven't seen them have that ability to play, like a team that they played in the second half that says we're going to win. We're going to win some games on the road. We haven't seen that yet.
Yeah. Now we're going to get to officiating in a second, but both of the themes that we talk about on offense and on defense, execution for the offense, reading other offenses when it comes to the defense, and tackling, those are issues that point to practice, as you've been saying throughout this whole video. It's going to be week 7 for USC. Is it concerning that there's issues that need to be fixed in practice that don't seem like they're happening at all each week?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
It was rhetorical.
Concerning. It is concerning. Yes.
So how do you fix that, though?
I think at this point, and I use the word hope, you just hope that you have enough talent and they play hard enough and you make enough of the right calls. And Khalil Tate, for example, doesn't run wild. And Oregon doesn't come down and play really good defense. Now, I mean, we'll see. I mean, the matchups, if you can come in and play this game at Notre Dame under these circumstances, this is such a big time place and a big time game, and compared to anything you're going to see in the Pac-12, there's nothing compares to this, and they handled it pretty well. I mean, again, right off the bat they didn't, but they didn't let that take them out of the game. You got to give it to this team. They don't get down and quit. They don't get down and say, oh man, what chance do we have? So you got to like that, and you got to like their talent. They got decent talent. They're running thin on defense right now, and they just don't tackle well. Tackling well. If they tackle well, I don't think we know how good this team could be. I mean, but they resist any attempts to say maybe you should figure out a different way to do tackling in practice. That's just not happening. And so, we'll see. Is it something that comes around after they played 6 games? Do you start saying, well, we've played enough in games? Or do you still, tend to be a little hesitant because you don't do it in practice and you're just not sure if you can do it in games? Or is it, the rest of the teams are going to play aren't as good as Notre Dame, so you think, well, maybe they'll be a little more confident and just, go out and make plays?
Yeah. Now, when it comes to officiating, that roughing the passer call that was highly questionable looms larger just because Notre Dame won by 3 points, and that set up a field goal. And then you have the push-off, and then I'm forgetting another one.
The kickoff. I mean, the onside kick.
Brian Kelly on the field. And Clay Helton said that there was a phantom whistle at that point, and so he felt like some of the players, USC's players, weren't sure if the play was happening, if it was dead. And so Clay asked the officials, he talked to them for a while after that play, whether it was reviewable and if they could see if they could change it, but they didn't. And Clay was asked about it, and he paused for a while, kind of had to collect himself. You could tell he was frustrated and said, it's a hard job for refs. It's a hard call to make live when it's happening in real time. But what do you take away? It's Pac-12's refs, and I think that's really the only explanation. It's just Pac-12 refs again.
Yeah, this might be another one of those plays where the Pac-12 has to come out where they say, we're all for transparency. We're going to review these plays, and we'll come out on Sunday evening with a statement if it's a possibly game-changing play and a mistake. And I would think all they have to do is review the film. And if you had whatever they are, I don't even know what the numbers are. There are 8 officials now. If not one of the Pac-12 officials saw Brian Kelly on the field during the kickoff, getting his players lined up. I mean, how do you miss that? How could you have every official miss that play? I mean, it's inexcusable, honestly. And then you had poor Michael's motherhead with the San Diego guy who officiated probably the majority of the fall camp practices, and here he gets all uptight, I guess, at the end of the first half when the two teams go after one another. I'll give the USC coaches credit; they got in between way before the Notre Dame coaches and way before the Pac-12 officials. But then they throw unsportsmanlike conduct penalties on both teams, as Michael Mothers had unsportsmanlike penalties on both teams, on Notre Dame and on UCLA. And I'm thinking, gosh, if you only had the Pac-12 officials here, they'd know the difference between USC and UCLA. And then you say, oops, you do have the Pac-12 officials here. And that became the meme for the Notre Dame student section at the end of the game, calling USC UCLA.
Chanting that,
UCLA. And to me, that's actually not any kind of an insult for USC. It is an insult for UCLA. If the Notre Dame students thought the worst thing we could call USC is UCLA, if I'm UCLA, I don't like that much. USC, and just shake it off. But that's kind of a really nasty thing to say about UCLA.
Well, when it comes to you talked about it, alluded to it, there was a fight at the end. I'm not sure if people at home were able to see it because they cut to commercial, and then I'm not sure they even saw the refs at UCLA, so that's something if you're watching at home probably you didn't see. But I guess, Dan, where does this team go? I know Clay Helton in his post-game presser said that if this team plays like they did against Notre Dame for the rest of the season, they'll win the Pac-12 title. I know before he said that they'll go to the Pac-12 championship, but he said they'll win tonight. What do you take away from that and Clay's optimism about this team?
I would say, what are you going to do to make them play like this the next 6 games? How does that happen? Is it just going to happen? You're going to hope it happens? You're going to think it might happen because we got enough good players and we're not playing somebody quite as good as Notre Dame? Or do you make it happen? What are you going to do to make sure that the stuff that didn't happen tonight, that cost you the game, doesn't happen next week and the week after and the week after? What are you going to do? And I mean, the problem we always get into is, no, we're going to keep things the same. We're really comfortable and confident and keeping them the same every week. And you just think, how does that make any sense if you can't tackle? Don't you have to work on tackling? I mean, it's like so basic. And it was so often tonight. I mean, and Notre Dame's a physical team. They're not as talented as USC on the top end, but they're really talented at doing what they do. They do what they do. They're coached well to do what they do. They scheme right. They call the right plays. They take advantage of USC's weaknesses. And, give Notre Dame credit. But if USC had that same kind of focus and that same kind of ability to take advantage of everything that USC could take advantage of, it'd be a different story.
Yeah. Now, as far as injuries go, we don't have real full official updates. We do know that Elijah Griffin left with a back injury. He missed the UW game due to back spasm, so you have to assume that's why. And then Isaac Taylor-Stewart was out. It looked like a left leg injury, but he did come in. Palaie also left early, and he returned as well. And then there's one more guy.
Greg Jackson, we're not sure.
Oh, it was Greg Jackson actually has a shoulder injury,
Johnson,
and that looked pretty bad. And he's had shoulder surgery before, so that's something that's concerning. We didn't get any update from Clay Helton on that, so we'll know probably more on Sunday in the conference call. So just a little update on that. But Dan, any final thoughts before we wrap it up here in South Bend?
Well, you hope that not being able to go really, really, really hard in practice, even for a short, controlled amount of time, does that put them in a little more, risk situation when they get into a game like this, with Notre Dame? I don't know, but you'd probably like to see them not feel like they have to overextend themselves in terms of, we don't do it in practice, so it's just not quite as natural to it. I mean, it looked very natural for Notre Dame to do what they did. This is who we are, this is how we practice, it's how we play. USC, it's not how they practice, but it's how you have to play. And so I don't know. I mean, if this was one of those games where you got guys just trying a little bit hard. I mean, that was Graham Harrell's kind of explanation for the first half, that maybe they were putting too much pressure on themselves and just trying too hard. The second half, they look confident and comfortable doing what they do. So, there are a whole lot of explanations that you can take out of this. I don't know if we're going to see some reaction to this game that will change how they approach the second half of the season. You'd like to see some. I'm not sure. I'm not sure we will.
Yep. We'll see. All right, that's going to wrap it up from South Bend. For Dan Weber, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.